can we all stand and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Oh, I gotta give you a statement.
Gotta give you one. I'm trying to find my thing. I'm trying to find it.
It's been a long day. Do you want to go over yours? Yeah. Okay, we're going to have a public input statement from the vice chair.
The first public input session is a 15-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement. A second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. The speaker will give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designed for noble residents. The board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions cannot be made during public input. For example, matters involving personnel. We also are asking that, as well with our policy, that we try and not to repeat the same discussions or the same topics over and over and over again. And it's not a back and forth.
That's it.
Say 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yeah.
Okay, do we have people who'd like to have public input tonight? Anybody who would like to speak? Really?
My name's Sean Works. I'm from North Berwick. I'm just here to kind of represent North Berwick. There's a few people in a Facebook discussion talking about what we could do to make the voting day process go a little bit smoother in North Berwick Elementary School, and just to offer up, some suggestions, see what the board and the superintendents could do and how we could maybe work this out to make sure that everyone has a safe time voting, and see what options there are for us. If it be something like, there's been, of course, many things that have been kicked around on Facebook which are very easy to solve on Facebook, but in reality, they aren't so easy. Things like, seeing if we could have the elementary school closed on that day, if there was a way that we could do a parent-teacher conference that day, basically have some sort of way to ensure the safety of the students. And that seemed to be from the parents that I've talked to, that seemed to be the largest concern, is that just in that drop-off and pick-up time period, it's already crazy on a normal day. Add in the extra people that are coming and going when voting, just trying to get the students to and from vehicles and or buses in a safe manner became very difficult, and there's a lot of concerns with that. That's if you have any question.
Quick question, are you an S-H-A-W-N?
Yes, I'm sorry, S-H-A-W-N, W-O-R-K-S.
Got it, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, thank you.
right.
Anyone else would like to speak? Because we're doing it now and we'll do it at the end, so if you want to leave early, feel free to step up now. Okay, moving on. Minutes. November, what was the date?
15. 15.
Yeah, 15.
November 15th minutes. Anybody have any additions, changes?
Some of the amendments that I had her do was, my name was spelled wrong. There was, I was in
I
there
do what I
making a
can.
motion, but I wasn't actually
Right there.
here.
Right, so he just attended.
It's not always.
In spirit.
Exactly, that's why I had it redacted. And there was one other thing,
Well, it was that the vice chair addressed the
Yeah.
audience, and actually it was Mr. Price's stand-in vice chair. So I fixed all those things. Travis enjoys pointing things out to me.
And I'm glad you do.
Yes, it's all good. All
that
set?
was it.
All right.
She'll be back. She and her son have a function here just down the hall, and they'll be back after that.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes? Opposed? Abstained?
So 1, 2,
I will.
3, 4, 5, 6, 701, 701, and Denise.
Yeah, that was too long. See if I can spell it correctly.
Do we have a student report?
Well,
we
you
do
may,
not.
you may
Okay, so she can do it.
later.
Yeah, she wasn't sure he was going to be
Yeah,
here or not,
okay.
so
Yeah.
at this point, I'm just going to say none at this time.
There's an excuse me, driver ed
Driver
program thing up there. So we'll see how that goes.
Do you want to move up and fill up another
So now we have a
I'm
second
just gonna
reading
stay here.
there?
Just gonna stay here.
on those policies. We good?
Would you like to move up some feedback from the North Berwick
We can
and the
change it if
voting
you
and so
want.
forth?
I'll make that motion to change the agenda to bring item number 9 up to current. So that would be item number 6.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of that?
And that's 780.
Yep. So since we had public input, we're going to just go right to the North Berwick voting issue.
So I had, obviously I received the question, the electronic, somebody passed it on to me. Streeta did, maybe? Yeah.
Your 3
Okay,
minutes is a very
let's-
long
Oh,
time.
turn off your timer.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
You had
I guess
much
we'll
longer
move
than
on.
you thought.
Joanne did.
I didn't even get start on that. That was creepy. We're good.
I'm okay, okay. So, and it's been a question for the schools too. It's not just a North Berwick question, it's also a Lebanon question. The Lebanon situation, to some folks, seems to be a little bit more problematic because there may not be any possibility of a secondary polling place. So there were discussions of, can the polling place be moved? Can the polling places be split to cut the traffic in half? Can there be, as Mr. Works mentioned, could there be a parent-teacher conference? Could there be a workshop day or something like that? So one of the things that is really difficult for us is that the state implemented a new statute that says that all school districts that send to a regional vocational center must be within 5 school days of each other to start a school year. The previous legislation was 11 school days. So if you start at 5 as a max number, we know that that doesn't mean you might stay at 5, because we had a snow day when at the coast it was perfectly clear, where I saw pictures of Lebanon going, wow, look at the snow, and yet I was here at the high school and it was just raining. So we do end up with more than 5 days, but at the start of it, you have to submit all the calendars. So Sanford starts with their calendar, the other 8 districts build into that. For us, we have 175 student days, and Sanford has 175, that's the state minimum. So we're kind of tied a little bit to the exact schedule that Sanford creates. If they had a couple more days in their schedule and we had a little flexibility that way, or if we did, we might have some options, but we don't. So this year we ended up with 6 days out of sync, and we had to write a waiver. One year we were out of compliance by, the first year they did it, we were at 7 days from the 11. which was a substantial change, but it wasn't enough, so all 8 superintendents were called to Augusta for a 2-hour meeting to say, figure this out, sit in the room and figure it out. Some districts have contracts that say you can't start until after the holiday. Some districts say you can. Some districts say we give teachers the last Friday in December before the break, or we give the last Friday before the April vacation. So there are different contracts that hamper our opportunity to limit that. So what my suggestion would be it will be moving forward with SRTC and Sanford, is to begin the conversation about holding a district-wide PD day, potentially looking for the opportunity to bring in a major speaker, major resource, see if we can share some of our PD funding to do some really big things on trauma-informed schools or on social-emotional curriculum, for instance. So that would be first. My last option would be to cancel school for the day, because I know that's going to create an out of sync unless everybody does the same thing. And a number of the school districts don't have this problem. They don't vote in their schools now.
Now, that out of sync with Sanford, because that's a high school technical center, also affects our elementary schools?
Yes, because as soon as, if you said, for instance, we're not going to hold we're going to cancel elementary school on this day and just hold secondary school, then your own calendar's out of sync, and you're going to have, I'm going to be paying employees to drive elementary routes on an extra day or drive those secondary routes on an extra day, and that incurs extra costs. It's got to be factored into a budget. And then you have to figure out, well, how do people sign up for routes? And the same thing occurs with staffing at the schools. I still need the same secretarial work, the same food service. I need the same educational technician support, the RTIs, all of those sorts of things. So it gets a little difficult.
Okay.
So I'd prefer to keep our district on the same schedule. Now, you could have a situation in which one of the schools, Knowlton, had some power problems a year or 2 years ago, and we were at the point of thinking we might have to close Knowlton half day, but then we got word it would be back on in a short time. So you could end up out of sync, but as long as you feed them lunch, it counts as a day. So I'm not thrilled that schools are voting places because of the safety factors. This is, we live in different times. This year, just as in one kind of situation, there have already been, in this school year, 18 incidences involving weapons discharge in school. There have been 18 school shootings in 2018. So those are just...
That's nationwide, right?
Nationwide.
Not just here.
Oh.
Yeah, no, not just here, no.
Nothing.
Okay, just checking.
Holy cow, no. Sorry.
Thought that sounded-
Yeah, and there've been over 300, I think it was 313 shootings in the U.S. in terroristic kinds of activities in 2018. And we're on day what? That's almost one per day. It's really not a safe... I would prefer to be able to keep our envelopes, our outside envelopes, as secure as we possibly can during any given day of the year. And I think that open doors, we're more at risk on those days, and I'm not thrilled about that. So we do have some work to do. I am going to take a visit. Dwayne Moran has invited me to take a walk over at the rec center. He was just sending me square footage to compare on why that might work, not work as a setting for North Berwick. But, you know, I think the options are gonna lie in changing what those days are. And if it causes us to be out of sync and the commissioner calls all the superintendents back to Augusta, I say, sorry, I can't move on mine. And you folks gotta figure out some other way. We have been compliant every year to date. So if I have to cause one out of compliance day, well, actually it'd be two, right?
Two for voting.
Has there been any thought about our A gym, where you have a parking lot that's not gonna have buses going through, 2 doors for in and out, and we can shut the doors to the school?
I did have a thought about using the A gym or the B gym separately and diverting traffic and so forth as another potential. It's still, this is 1,200, 6 students during the day, plus staffing of over 100 people. I mean, this is 1,300 people here a day. And they do a great job of considering the size of the school, the number of egresses, and the population, of keeping the envelope as safe as possible. It creates another situation here, because doors open out of the gyms, obviously. So I don't know if that would be just trading the situation for another situation.
Well, I don't think you're gonna get away from a situation where there's not gonna be some sort of compromised access to a school facility.
Unless there are
But you
no
have a
students.
much improved parking lot situation.
Driving
Mm-hmm.
cars.
So you're gonna have less foot traffic difficulty, and also we're dealing with teenagers and not smaller children who are out at portables,
Yeah.
and are walking in between portables in the main building for a bathroom while exposed to public, which
Yeah.
we try our best to verify. I don't know, it might be an option to look at.
That would be like the C option for me. The A might be that PD time, the B might be that it's a workshop, something like that. I'm trying to work that out. All of the ascending schools take a professional development day on the last Friday on the first Friday in October, second Friday, whatever.
First.
Sometime, it was October 9th this past year, so.
Columbus Day
Would have been-
weekend.
Columbus Day weekend,
Friday.
yeah.
Okay, there we go. So what I might suggest is, do we talk to the National Association about saying, the State Association about saying, do that day on Election Day? Does that mean that somebody can't vote? I don't know. We have absentee ballots and stuff. So maybe there's other possibilities that we can combine dates, but I'll have those conversations with SRTC next Friday, I think it is.
Stay tuned for events.
I think as, with my background as a in safety, I think that we really need to look into stop doing voting at the schools and putting them somewhere else, because we're really putting our kids at risk. And whether the towns have a spot, then they should really be trying to use that spot instead of our schools. Because the safety we're opening up our facilities for safeties, and that's a major concern and a major problem.
But what if a town doesn't have a building big
Then
enough?
obviously our hands are tied at that point, but the town should be looking at building something or getting something.
Well, maybe
to
it's
have
not
that.
building something, maybe it's like there is a venue in the town, that even if it's a private venue, that costs a little bit more money for some, I know the schools are free, but is there a venue in town that they can use, actually? I mean, if I was in Sanford, I'd use the outdoor arena. But, no, not really.
We're trying to build a big, focus a lot on the safety of our schools and securing our schools and our kids. And by allowing this voting, we're unsecured in our school on those days, which, in my opinion, is probably one of the most concerning days to unsecure, because you have all these political stances that people are bringing in, and you never know what their mentality is that day when they come in to vote. And we've just opened them up to allowing them access to our students, and
Yeah,
that's not cool.
people aren't being searched on the way in and so forth. It's the highest traffic
It
days of the
doesn't,
year.
doesn't have to be someone out to shoot a school. It could be an altercation in the parking lot that gets out of hand, or.
Domestic issues are
Yes,
big.
domestic issues,
Are
of
huge.
just things like that. It's not the worst case scenario, but it could be a bad scenario it's exacerbated by having them in that proximity with kids that are walking right by everybody at a time when they should be secure in the school. So I agree with Travis too. If there is a second option where they don't come to our schools, I suggest we help them out with that.
I will talk with Chip Harlow and with Dwayne Moran about those options and see also what I can do on it from the SRTC side. Okay? Thank
Do you
you.
want to take a break now, or are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right, so we're going to go back to number 6, the second reading of those policies.
Okay, so, sorry, I can't say this topic without scratching. I just
I
can't
know,
do
I
it.
just read it and I was scratching.
All right. So, it's the one thing that I feel I have an advantage. Head lice guidelines, JLCCC. Yeah, I still can't help it. Okay. So the recommendation was, first of all, this is a non-required policy. And can't help it. And it is, the recommendation is to not include our verbiage in the policy, but to include the verbiage that was sent to you that was from a, Joanne, what was that? Was that MSMA? I forget. Yeah, I think that was an MSMA draft. The point of the policy really says what used to happen in schools is that the kids who probably need the most support and have the greatest deficits in the school setting as far as environmental deprivation may be incurred, are the ones who more frequently have this kind of situation. And so the protocols used to be, a number of years ago, that you send kids home. We're taking our neediest population and saying you can't be in school more and more and more. That's what was happening. So the state put out a requirement in statute that not be the case. And then it did a lot of groundwork at the time about trying to inform communities, schools, nurses, the public about some of the myths that just aren't realistic about head lice.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the policy as presented with the changes that we made.
Second.
All in favor of the policy as changed?
Was that a 9-0?
Yes.
Thank you.
9. Next.
Was no one else out there scratching? Come on. How do you not do
I don't know, but I still want to scratch.
I taught second grade, it doesn't bother me.
Administering medications in school. There has been significant change in that policy. As you can see, it's quite lengthy. Our previous policy has not been updated since 2003, and there have been a lot of changes. Now, you might look at this and say, where's the marijuana guideline? Well, it's a separate policy for the board. You've already got that in place. So the recommendation, that's JLCDA. The recommendation by the committee is to update this policy according to MSMA and Drummond-Woodson guidelines.
I'll make a motion to accept the policy as presented.
Second. Okay, all in favor of this policy? It's 9.
Thank you. Ms. Reader, are you on that committee?
We finally got it right.
Lynn, she's on that committee, so you know. I will never keep these, I'll never keep these straight. So JLCD-R, so the R policies are the procedures. And this particular one is medication administration on school field trips. Now, there's, we have a mention of school field trips in previous policies, and Justin and I have the exact same kind of recollection that we've dealt with this one before, but I will be straight with you and tell you, we couldn't find anything. Jen and I went through the entire book and could not find anything that was already in place as reviewed. So this is, excuse me, let me get back to JLCD-R, medication administration on school field trips, which, as far as we could tell, is not currently in place. But I think it's one of those that there may have been one, but between the paper copy of notebooks to the electronic copy somewhere in there, we have lost something. I met with Patty Kingston, who is the director for the nurses, and reviewed all of the medication, AED, all of the related policies with her. So I wish to thank her for her help.
I'd like to make a motion to add JLCD-R to our policy.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of adding this policy?
And like I said, or was saying, Patty also assured me as we went through these that each of these match our current procedures. So we're in good shape. The next policy is JLCE. It's a non-required policy, but we're recommending continuation of that. What our original policy said was the use of AEDs, and then it ran into the procedural section 2. So there wasn't separation between here's the policy and here's the procedure for that. So we're recommending two things. One is complete change in the language to the most recent release sample policy, and then two is to separate out the procedure from that. So I'd be looking for your thoughts on JLCE and JLCE-R.
So do we have only certain people that can use these, or any, how is that? It's just the nurse that can
No,
use this,
no.
or anybody who's?
If you and I went out here and around the corner, we could take the AED out and use that. And when you pull them out, there's training that happens. Actually, it's already happened in all the schools but the high school, and they're going to build that into one of their opportunities when they have the staff collectively. The device itself, though, if you've never
Tells you what
picked
to
one
do.
up, it tells you, you open that thing up and it starts talking to you.
And it won't let you
No.
use
You
it.
can't,
it's a hard
if the
person
person's
doesn't need
read is not, if you think you need to use one and the device is saying there's a pulse there, it will not discharge.
So people don't have to worry about that.
And it's also, I mean, it doesn't also go on a 0 pulse. So you can't have the two pads in the air, get it started, and go to your friend and like, ha, clear. It has to, it scans for a while and tries to detect a certain arrhythmia that can be adjustable, and then it goes. So, they're fairly safe.
I think that's important for people.
What's
to
that?
know. You would probably try.
I would try to do that, and that is in my character.
I'd like to make a motion to accept these two policies.
I'll second that.
A street of
I
each.
think she'd be
You beat
here.
me. That's
Okay, all in favor of these two policies?
As a set, great, thank you.
Can I just touch on that
Please.
before we move forward? Can we confirm that we're teaching our teachers proper CPR?
Yes.
And they're actually getting a are they going through the certification process?
No.
Or are they just given a piece of paper? Because I have been given a piece of paper that a teacher has received.
Yeah, they're not going through the certification process.
Well, the paper that I was given,
Yeah.
that a teacher received, was inaccurate on the proper procedures for CPR.
Could I have some more updated information on
Yeah.
on the actual work? And it's not done as an actual course because I forget, I've taken that, but it's been a number of years.
It's like an
I
8-hour course.
was going to say, it's
If
a-
you include
it's a very-
first aid, it's a 16-hour course.
Yeah, so what we would need to do is we'd need to build in 2 more days into professional development just to focus on that course. And that would be about, if we did it with the entire staff, it would be about $103,000 per day.
If the staff wanted to do that outside of school on their own, do they have reimbursement
Yes.
avenues for that?
No, we don't have it in the budget to do that financially. A new policy, there's a dash in there again. When you, so in the
JLFA?
agenda, yeah, it says dash A. There's no dash A. There's a dasher and a dancer, but not a dash A. It's coded correctly in the policy, though. It's JLFA.
Right, there's no dash on here.
Okay, great. So, in the subcommittee, so this is a policy that was required as of August by the state to be included this year in handbooks. So it's a newly required policy. It has some implications because, sexual abuse, child sexual abuse prevention and response. It requires that all school personnel shall be required to complete a minimum of 1 hour of training in child sexual abuse awareness and prevention, with training to be updated at least once every 4 years thereafter. New employees must complete training within 6 months of hire, and it talks about what evidence-informed kind of training is permitted, and it talks about the school unit will provide sexual abuse prevention programming to its pre-K through grade 5 students. We currently use, Mike just left, we currently use the SARSM group that comes in, and they do some very good programming for us and have done it for a number of years. Such instruction shall be aligned with the health education standards of Maine's system of learning results, so I've asked the administrators to check to see if SARSM is aligned with the MLR for this grade span and incorporated in a written school health education curriculum. So I think some people may recall Jamie Vollmer was the speaker at this year's Maine School Board Association and MSMA Joint Conference. And he is a guy that has done a study about from 1900 to 2000, I think it was. Maybe it was beyond. Maybe it was 2010. And it talked about the exponential increase of mandates from the DOE and how a lot of them make good sense that you're going to put those in, but it all comes back to the same thing. The school day has not really increased in the last 25, 30 years at least. And again, it's an unfunded mandate. We're going to provide this training. We're going to have resources in schools, and maybe SARSM piece matches and maybe it doesn't. We have to look at that. And it takes time out of the curriculum for other things. It's another good thing to do, but it's another thing to do. So we would be in compliance by having this as a policy and following through with the guidelines of it. It's just a difficult thing for us to keep adding.
Would that be something you would add, like, at the first, meetings on the beginning of the school year? Is that when you would
So
do it?
one of the things that we do in our district, there are now for administrators, there are about 9 requirements from FERPA to, the sexual abuse training now to, what are some of the other, in the suite that we use from Drummond Woodson?
Yeah, confidentiality.
Confidentiality, I don't know, I'm drawing
I
a
know,
blank.
I know
There's a
what you-
whole
yeah,
suite
there's a bunch of them.
of
Yep.
videos, and we give people till October 15th to do those, and when they complete it, there's a sign-off, an electronic sign-off that they do, and we keep those records every year. If people haven't completed it, we, school administration back checks with them, gives them a timeline to complete that work. And because non-compliance with it, it becomes personal liability at that point if it's a requirement of the job. So we certainly don't want people to be in that situation. For the hourly employees, what we typically do is take the first day of the school year, the first in-service training, and we sit them together in a large space, like maybe the lecture hall, and we don't provide popcorn, but those videos are continuing to move along. They're about 7.5 hours worth. This is going to make it 8.5 hours. So we do of total training that every employee needs, and then more for administrators.
Okay.
That's a lot of requirements.
It is.
I'd like to make a motion to accept this policy.
A second.
Thank you. Second. All in favor of this policy? Everybody?
Thank you.
Is that the last one?
Public concerns and complaints, the last one. So now this is also on the back, there's a similar version of it on the back of that brochure that Travis has right there. So we're recommending to keep the policy as is, except that we make it clear to folks, if you were to read this, you might say, oh, so anything that somebody says, I don't agree with that decision, can go to this level, and if I don't like the answer, can go to this level, and then it can go superintendent, board, and so forth. And it's not accurate, because there are certain things that are school-based decisions, and there are certain things that are team-based decisions. Here's some examples. So some decisions are school/department-based and may not be appealed to different levels, i.e. class, team placements. So classroom placement, I don't review classroom placements. I don't review team placements. Those are school-based decisions. IEPs, those are team decisions. There's an IEP team. I can't make a change in that unilaterally, nor can the board. 504 team determinations. School bus routes, you remember the conversation on the bus stops too? Some folks who've been on the board for a couple of years. Those things can become quite contentious. And at some point, you have to say that there are caps on some decisions. So the change in the policy is to say that not everything can be, if we're using black pens or if we're using Chromebooks and somebody says we should be using Macs or something, not every decision is reviewable all the way up through the school board in an appeals process.
I think it was just to clarify it, because it's
Clarify.
always been that way. It's
Just-
you're trying to
absolutely,
clarify
it's not new.
The purpose of the
Yeah.
policy.
But if somebody read it previously, they might
Exactly.
say, what do you mean? That doesn't
Right.
tell me that.
Right. I'd like to make a motion to accept this policy as amended.
I'll second.
Your turn.
Okay, all in favor of this policy?
Great. Thank you, appreciate it. We took the first readings out. We'll have those on, what's the, so we'll have them on the 20th?
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so now we are at, I can find my thing. Number 7, right? Non-discrimination for public access. Terry has a little information. Remember, we're lay people, so you gotta really make it, I don't understand it all, so I'm gonna have to help you with that.
I will try to make it as simple as
Okay.
possible. So I'm Terry Wright. I'm the Community Access Coordinator for Berwick Community TV. We're a small public access station that broadcasts all of the public meetings, planning board, selectmen, school board, appeals, special meetings. I just did the tour up at the Lebanon Elementary School. So we try to get this information out to viewers as well as constituents throughout our district. Right now, we're facing a crisis. By January 14th, the FCC will be making a decision on proposed rules that are meant to kill public access. These rules basically state that at that point, any contracts that have been negotiated through Comcast, Time Warner, Spectrum, whoever you've got a contract with on franchise agreements will be null. They will not have to be enforced as far as the FCC is concerned, which means the franchise fees that support our public access stations will disappear. Now, if we do manage to keep that, their second part of that is we'll kill you in a second way. And that is that what they're going to do is they're going to charge us for every drop in every school, in every public building. So fire, police, town offices, every one of your schools that has a public drop, we will be charged for where it starts all the way to where it ends and back again. By the time it's done, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars the school can't afford, thousands of dollars municipalities can't afford, that will basically mean we have no way to support, even if we wanted to fund a public access station, we wouldn't be able to. This language was basically written by the cable industries. It is being pushed through by the current members of the FCC Commission, who basically, in my opinion, and I'm not speaking for anyone in cable access or anywhere else, but in my opinion, are in the back pockets of cable. There is one holdout in there right now, but one isn't going to get us anywhere. We are trying to fight this at a national level, and what I'm here to ask for you this evening is on my Berwick, Maine webpage. I have put this information as well as template letters. So until December 14th, we can send in comments. These comments will be taken into consideration, and there are thousands of them right now. I've put a template up there. I've put the email addresses of the FCC commissioners. I've also put the comment section where you can, so once you fill out the template, you have to file it. I've put the link to that as well. This is serious, and if we're not able to hold it off, Berwick will lose too. We just negotiated a 15-year contract. We just finalized that this year, yes.
The BCTV.
BerwickMaine.org.
Yeah. Where you have the template?
Yes.
Would you do me a favor and send me a link directly
Absolutely.
to the template so I can send it out to board members for
Absolutely,
their
yeah.
perusal?
Yep.
Thank you.
So that's the biggest thing that's hitting us right now. The second part of that, which came out long before we realized what was happening at the national level, is called a PEG non-discrimination bill. And PEG stands for Public, Educational, and Governmental TV, which is what we are. This bill was put together by the Community Television Association of Maine, members of which I am a member. And what has happened, it came about because of what we call channel slamming. This is being done by Spectrum, Time Warner, Charter. And what they're doing is they're taking the cable, and only the cable access stations. No other stations are being affected. They're taking the channels that have been, and Lincoln County TV is a good example. They were at Channel 7. For 30 years, they've been at Channel 7. They got slammed into the 1300s. So now all of these people who have gone to Channel 7 for their public television, they can't find it. Oh, well, don't worry. We'll give you a box to start out. We'll pay for that box, too, for a year. Then you've got to pay for the box. In order to access your cable stations, your local government station, you got to pay for a box. And we're calling it discrimination because they're doing it to no one else. Why are they doing this? Well, number one is they can sell that channel now. Telemarketers are going to buy that baby. We just made some money on it. Okay. Number two is by throwing us into the 1300 ranges, people don't find us. Nobody's watching us. Why bother having it? We don't have to pay for it no more. So this bill is meant to stop that. Part of the bill is also to get us out into high def. So all the channels you watch football and these great things on, they're all sending out in the real high defs. They take my station, which I'm doing high def TV, I'm programming that in, And they squish it right down to 720/480 and they send that out. And that's all we can get. They won't let us go out in high def, so we're asking to get that. The third part is put us in the program lineup. When you're going through your program guide, you're looking and all it says is public access. It doesn't tell you what's on the station. We haven't been allowed to do that. So we're asking for the opportunity to be with everybody else and put us on the program guide. The other part of that is establishing a minimum house distance between houses for additional cable access. So we just finished negotiating the contract. We're cabling the last 2 roads in Berwick. We did it on 30 houses per square mile. And we want to get that language in there because what they're saying is sometimes it's 45, sometimes it's 50. They can make up whatever they want. Let's establish a minimum number of houses per square mile to put up. So that's the other piece of it. The last part is to make it standardized language. So when we're getting ready to go negotiations and we're saying it's a time frame, they need to come into alignment with us. It's just making them do what they're supposed to do during negotiations. So I have also put up information on the PEG non-discrimination bill on my website, my webpage, as well as a template letter. I ask if you could send that out to your representatives, senators, legislators, ask them to support the PEG non-discrimination bill. And hopefully, we've got a lot of great supporters on this. So I'm hoping that this will be one that gets through easily without major problems. We already have the cable industries fighting us, though. They've already gotten in there, and they're already trying to say it will hurt them and you know, the game. So that's what I'm here tonight to ask is help us stay alive, help us continue to offer these great programs and the opportunity for people who can't attend these meetings. And Lord knows how many people are in this school. We typically have 2 or 3 people sitting in these chairs, but you get it at home. You can watch it later, and you can keep involved in your community through this. So, any questions? Great.
So this is a national issue?
National.
National.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to affect thousands and thousands of cable programs around the country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very informative. Appreciate it.
Okay. Number 8, Facilities and Finance Subcommittee update.
Okay, Lynn, rumor has it that you're on that committee. Just figured I'd keep.
I don't know, I was locked out when I tried to come to the meeting. And that didn't make you happy, did it?
Yes. So we have, probably 10 people on that committee. We have a board rep from each of the towns. We have Lynn for North Berwick. We have Joanne. Joanne is just, she has an automatic, just slap her onto a committee, let's go.
Yeah. Can't say no.
And we had Travis, who chairs that committee for the Berwick town, and for all 3 communities. He's represents Berwick. And then we have Audra Bove and Tyler Windsor for administration, Sue and myself. We have Kevin Moore and Ron Delisle from facilities and maintenance. Did I miss him? Denise Van Campen from central office.
Plenty of us.
I think that's, yeah, it's a group of about 10. So we've been talking about, one of the things that's been very helpful is that James Bellissimo from Berwick, Jen Griffin from Lebanon, and Roger Frechette from North Berwick have been helping me to keep an updated Google Doc on what the situations are with building permits, with any requests that are going on, with housing starts, with what phase of construction, what's being built. Is it condominiums? Are they 1 and 2 bedrooms, or are they full homes? And what's the approximate value of those? Do they have 4 acres? Are they farm and field properties that have a minimum requirement of 4 acres, which means they're going to be a more expensive household and likely have more bedrooms and so forth, so that we can try to get a look at what the future impact might be to the schools. facility-wise. We have, 2007, 2008, when the markets went south and there was, 2009, people weren't building at that time. We're rural communities, and now is a different time, 2018. The financial prospects are looking a lot better than they did a decade ago. And so we're seeing the land-rich communities having a turn in the development of their communities. So additional development. So that's one thing that we're paying attention to. It looks like right now that definitely Huzzy Elementary and Lebanon Hanson Elementaries will need a portable in both communities for next year on the short-range plan, and that it's a possibility that North Berwick is going to need that as well. So that could be 3 portables. We are looking at, we have several plans in place that we've talked about in previous meetings that involve things like additional space to North Berwick Elementary, additional development of space in classrooms at Huzzy, and then replacement of Lebanon Elementary School. And I'd like some members of the board who participate in that work to talk to their board mates and to the public about the meeting that we just had on that, the open forum. So anybody like to take a shot at that?
Well, we had a good turnout in Lebanon for the walkthrough of the Lebanon Elementary School. And I think it went really well, even though it was a cold night with a lot of ice outside. But it was very informative. I think people were kind of surprised to see the conditions of some of the areas that we showed them. And it's not from lack of care. Our maintenance department has done a great job throughout the years trying to maintain these buildings. But the Lebanon Elementary School is a wooden structure. The average lifespan of that type of structure is 50 years, and that building was built in 1953, so we've gone well over the expected usage of the school. I think there was a great concern from a lot of the younger parents there that have children that will be going into the school, even though it is structurally, it's a safe building. We would never put students in a building that isn't safe, but we have to make a decision on putting how much money we want to put into a school that it's at the end of its lifespan. And it was a well-attended event. There were really good questions from the audience about placement of where the addition would be, how many classrooms it would have. Lebanon has never had a full-size gym. It's a very tiny gym. If any of you have ever been there, you know how small it is.
And it's a standalone. It's not dual-purpose cafeteria.
No, and it's been really tough to get band, lunch, gym, all the activities that you need done in that space at the elementary school. And it's just a lot of pluses to move forward with the program, the plan of a new structure there, but it is at the very beginning stages. There's a lot more to talk about. But I was really pleased. There was great questions, and it was pretty well attended, I thought. And we had members from all 3 communities that were there, and we wanted all the communities to come and see the building because we're all part of the same district. And like I plan to attend any meetings that we have at discussing the Berwick addition and the changes that we'd like to do to the North Berwick School. Because we're all a group, and it's just as important to us in Lebanon what happens in the Berwick schools and North Berwick schools as I know it is for our North Berwick and Berwick members. What they want to know what's happening in Lebanon, and we all want our students to have the same
Same
opportunities, the same type of structure. Lebanon's kind of behind. That school it's really been a wonderful school, but we need to think of a new idea, a new plan, but, anybody else? Sorry if I...
I have to say that the tour of the basement was convincing.
Yeah.
Seeing the condition down there and it didn't, yeah.
So concerning the health aspect, as you mentioned, with all our schools, we constantly monitor water, we constantly monitor air, and it passes inspections each time. If we find an area that, in any of our schools that isn't passing, we work on that immediately to mitigate any difficulties. What Becky is referring to down there is, it's an old, it's 65 years old, and I'm about the same, so I'm a little bit better shape than that. But it has these, the backside of that school rises and falls 6 inches
That was impressive to see.
annually.
It's amazing.
From the frost heat from last January, I've got pictures where, with the old door that was there and the step, that was gone, and we've had to replace the door structure. We actually moved a door further out, and it used to come in, but water would run in, and at that time, and then it would freeze. And then in the summertime, you've got a full 6-inch step there. So that's quite a significant fluctuation in that. And we were seeing some damage to the rebar and concrete flooring underneath as you went into the basement and looked up. So we put $17,000 into that and had that looked at by an engineer, Neil, and civil consultants, Neil Raposa. And that is, we made sure that was completely solid, like we would with any of our projects. We have, that school has half the footprint of Hanson Elementary School. Hanson's bill for oil is $18,000 a year. Even though Lebanon Elementary is half the size, the oil bill is $23,000 a year.
That was a new figure for me to hear too, and I was amazed at that, how much more we're spending on fuel.
Yeah. The window, it was a very popular post-World War II window wall construction that was really designed for the South, but it was an easy thing to put together, put up. You could get it done in the summer and move on from there. It was built for Georgia. It wasn't built for Maine. And so lots of those schools were built here in Maine, and they've all been, had to have the window walls pulled out and replaced with solid walls. And so that was done with this school at some point as well. Most of those schools are not in existence at this time. And if people think, well, geez, you just have to put the money into the building. In the last decade, we put $800,000 into Lebanon Elementary School itself for maintenance. So people, what I want to make sure that the public is aware of is that sometimes they see a draft of something and they say, well, here's what they want to do, so that's a done deal. Why do we even bother to talk about it? And there's the image of this concept. That's what it's going to be. What I want to say to people is, number one, we're beginning phases of conversation. Please join us as we do more of those. We'll be announcing some upcoming visitations for Hussey School and for North Berwick Elementary. We'll be doing a phase 3 at the middle school, but we won't be announcing an open session for that. I don't think. It's just our final phase of the work there, unless the board would prefer to have one. I think we already had one last year during phase 2. So it's got to move from DEP permitting to board level approval to DOE, Department of Education, sanctioning. They have to authorize either repurposing or what's the other word I'm looking for? To close a school. Decommissioning. Thank you. Decommissioning of a school, and we would need to have permission to decommission a school and to relocate a new school over behind Hanson. And that includes plans that were already, the conceptual plans about field space and so forth, already involved in that. And then the last part of that is the public vote So all three towns have a say in whether or not these projects move forward. The sticker price for completely raising one school and building from scratch a new school, I'm glad we're not in Sanford trying to do the high school or trying, 92 million. Wasn't that it? 92-ish? This is about 15 to 20 million for that facility. The other schools are much less involved financially, and we're talking about a total of a 5-year plan. That's what we have in mind, because by that time, the Lebanon Elementary School is 70 years old, and we believe that we can maintain that properly throughout that time. It is, what we're doing at the middle school right now is we are giving that school an additional 30-year lifespan. We've already invested almost $1 million in Phase 1 and Phase 2 that we didn't take bonds out or anything for. That's paid for through our surplus each year. We've done a good job managing that. Thank you largely to Denise Van Kampen and the administrators in our schools. So the last piece that we're doing, the Phase 3 there, we believe that the bones of that school will do two things for us. It will give us that next 30-year phase, and that another group of board members with Joanne and
She'll still be
and administrators can decide at 20, 22, 23 years down the road what's the next step that's needed for that school. We can't do the same with Lebanon Elementary. That was never designed to be a 100-year building. There was no one standing there when that school was put up in a summer saying, wouldn't this be nice 100 years from now? I wonder who's going to be in which classroom. That was not part of the thinking. So we are maintaining the school. We are paying attention to the quality of the facility. It does not currently meet 21st century kinds of learning and standards and so forth, which we think is a deficit to our other elementary schools. That's the biggest concern I have. It's not a safety of the structure. It's what kind of opportunity are we providing? What's the flexibility of the facility to be used in a way that makes sense academically? It's really driven by shared space. That Patty Gilly and Heather LaFrance have very little flexibility in deciding when things occur in schedules. It's driven by band, it's driven by phys ed, it's driven by the cafeteria time. That's your primary, that will tell you when you can set everything else in motion there in a school day.
And with the proposed structure at the moment, what is it, 18 classrooms?
Yes, 32,000 square feet.
So it's a good size addition, and the gym would be
Full, it would be
full
a,
gym, which would be great, because that would open up the area where the kids now at the Hanson School have music, I believe, music, phys ed, and lunch. So it's really difficult to schedule everything that you need to schedule, and this will give a lot more flexibility for the use of the space.
yeah. Now, the overwhelming majority of the funds for this, if not all the funds, would need to come from local taxation, local dollars, and we're working with the Maine Bond Bank to determine cycles as well to see when we could try to package things to have the 2 to 3 year plan for North Berwick, the 2 to 3 year plan for Huzzy, and the 5-year plan for Hanson or a second Hanson be put all into the same bond package. The towns do not qualify for the revolving renovation fund at this time because we don't carry enough debt service on our buildings, which is a good thing in one way, but it's not such a good thing. The debt service to this school is one more year, in 2019, 2020, the last 1.6 million will be paid off in that, and then the district will not have any debt service on its schools. So that's a plus, but not when you're going out and you don't make a circuit breaker. This district has benefited in the past from a circuit breaker. Most of the school construction was in the 80s, the 83 to 86, and that drove up the debt service, so that when it came time in 1997 to talk about this school, the state contributed 34 out of the 38 million or whatever figure it came to, I forget exactly. But, so when people look at, well, how come Sanford's got 92 million that comes from the state? At the time when this school was built, it was the most expensive building project in state history, and it was the largest contribution in state history from state coffers. So the district has received its benefit in the past, and I think that if we take on some of these projects and we can consolidate that bond, I think that we'll also help ourselves to, at a next point, have a debt service that will allow us to reach a circuit breaker and be eligible for further revolving renovation funds.
Anything else? Questions?
Do we have warrants to sign tonight?
Yes, whoa.
Good
call,
Mr. Price.
All right, so we did number 9, so we're on to 10, employment.
Yes. So we have a person that that moved in a position. We had Susan Jochum was in one of our highest needs programs at Knowlton Elementary, which was an Asperger's spectrum disorder program. And so she moved into a different role. And so we had that opening, and it's a role that was already in last year's budget. So in this, it's kind of tough to land somebody at this time of year, any time of year for these programs. But we have a person by the name of Rebecca Bolstridge, who she worked for the last 2.5 years at Maine Behavioral Health Center for Autism and Developmental Disorders. And prior to that, for 2.5 years, she worked at Waban's Fraser Ford Child Development Center. So she comes to us with a good wealth of experience, and we're hopeful that the program's a great match for her, and she's a great match for it. So I'm putting her name forward as a high needs special education teacher.
We need to vote on that, right?
Yes.
Somebody want to make a vote?
I'll make a motion that we approve her hiring for the special ed program.
Thank you. Let me see. Oh, there we go.
Do we have a second? Thank you. Okay, all in favor of accepting this?
Who was the second? Denise, hi.
Okay, all in favor?
I was observing the pen, so. Okay, great. We will notify her. I appreciate the opportunity. So I feel extremely grateful that we have a qualified candidate for this kind of programming. And she has been working as in educational technician programming for us, so she's already a known entity. So that's a great piece when we can say we know something about who we're getting. That's an important program to try to fill.
Okay, other. Does anybody have any other things to bring up?
You don't have others, Steve?
I can come up with some.
Years.
No, that's
This has
okay.
never happened.
He still has a stack of.
I'm buying a lotto ticket. I'll be right back. I've got another. Next December 15th at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Hussey School, it is the Polar Express Carnival and Ride event. It's open to the public, not just for Hussey students, where there's games, crafts, a bus ride on the Polar Express bus with hot chocolate. It looks like it's $6 for adults. Students are free, and I think the other ones were $2 if I remember right.
What was the date again?
It's this 15th.
PTO, isn't it?
On the PTO?
Yeah.
Yep,
the
yep.
PTO
Berwick
function.
PTO's putting that on.
Nice.
I happen to personally know the conductor from last year, but I hear he has a family function on that same day.
Really?
Which is funny because I happen to know the conductor for this year.
This year.
Really?
I happen to have the conductor's hat from last year.
Well, it's good because I'll need to borrow that. I'm going to go get a suit rented up this weekend.
Be careful how much.
Again, the one thing he has an advantage on. I think we're good. But for all those of you with students at any of the schools, or if you're feeling like a fun Christmas bus ride, come meet us on the 15th there at the Hussey School.
I have the whole punch, the gloves, and the hat. And you
good.
may get those.
Okay.
Nice. Okay, nice, thank you.
Anybody else have a other? Wow. That was pretty good.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Well, no, we don't.
No,
Sorry.
no,
I jumped ahead.
Okay, now we have the
I'm gonna put you
time.
down, though.
What?
Okay.
I'm gonna put you down.
This is the time, if you have, we would have our second public input session. If anybody has any comments or would like to address the board.
I got rid of it.
We have one.
It's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Hi, I'm Shannon Rogers. I'm a Berwick resident. I work for the school district as well as a bus driver. Some of you are probably cringing that know me, saying, oh God, we don't know what's going to come out of her mouth next. But a lot of the people sitting over there were all here in regards to, some people would say the unfortunate event, other people would say the fortunate event that happened on Monday night. The announcing of the football position, the head football coaching position. But we noticed nobody is here from athletics. There's nobody here representing the coaching position. So we're just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. If we are going to be able to get a public statement on true facts and what led up to his contract not being renewed. Because there's stuff going on social media, which we know some of it's true, some of it's not true. If we need to put something on the agenda so that we can get to the bottom of it. There's just a lot of he said, she said stuff going on, and we just want some answers. So we don't know if the school board's able to provide us with a statement. Or-
So just so I can just quickly, I know I'm not supposed to back and forth, but I figure I might as well.
Answer the question.
It's just like any other position, it's a personnel matter, so the board doesn't speak about that in the public forum. If there's any question about the coach's character or anything like that, I would be more than happy to provide a personal reference and support for that person. I think he has outstanding character. And so it is not related to any, I've seen some of the myths that are going around, and I find it to be extremely unfortunate that Facebook is, personally for me, I'm not a Facebooker, so I kind of wish it didn't exist, but that's where we are. And I think that people, strangely enough, feel free to just put out something they hear. And as soon as you put, you know how it goes, as soon as somebody puts something in print, it must be true.
Right.
Whether it's in a newspaper or on a Facebook post or Wikipedia, everything I say in Wikipedia must be a fact. So what I would say is that there are things in some of those posts that that I find hurtful for the employee, and I wish that those kinds of things didn't occur, but I don't have any control over that.
Right.
But what I will do is give you my personal assurance that there is nothing strange or unusual or anything else. It's a personnel matter, but it's not related to any kind of wacky stuff at all. It's just about coaching and sports.
Right. And as we sat here 2.5 years ago and put him into the coaching position against a lot of the town's opposition, a lot of the negativity and stuff that's going on these days is a direct reflect on something that he put on Facebook and something that some other board members put on Facebook as well. And it's bringing down part of the community. It's putting a negative effect on the athletic department that has been, in the last 1.5 years or so, has been worked up very, very well. We just, I don't know. you can't stop the negativity that's happening.
Right, I agree.
But how do you get the truth out there on some things that did happen without putting it on Facebook, without putting it on social media and getting attacked for it? You know, I don't know. Because he's not here, we can't direct any questions to him.
And
And
if he
because
was-
Aaron's not here for
if
athletics,
If the person was here, the school board meeting is not the forum to direct questions to an employee, whether it's a teacher, whether it's about something on a bus route, whether a video or whatever happens today, there's access to so much stuff that just, there's such opportunity for good.
Right.
And I think sometimes they go awry. Also, if Mr. Watson were here this evening, there would be no forum to be able to discuss a personnel matter.
because we can't go back and forth, and it's a personal.
It's, even if there was a back and forth like we're doing right now, it is a personnel matter, and there's nothing that the public, there's no share that can occur with any position involving personnel matters, so.
So basically, right now, we're just going along with the fact that his contract wasn't renewed and they're looking for a new head coach.
Yes.
That's what we're,
Yes,
okay.
Yep.
That's all we wanted to know.
okay.
Anybody else have comments?
Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Chase, and I'm from the Lebanon community.
Could you say your last name for me?
Chason, Chiasson.
Thank you.
I'm curious to know if you can elaborate what the process is for a person who comes into this district to be hired as a coach, and the process in which how one is being either dismissed or fired, for that matter. Just for my own personal, because I haven't seen it on any of the district pages. Just curious for my personal knowledge.
How you hire and how
You want to respond to that? So when an opening occurs, you have an option. You can do an internal posting or an external posting, and then you look at the candidate pool you have. You have your first round interviews where you make a decision from that candidate pool who's going to be coming to an interview. And then you go from a first round interview to a second round interview that's done at the central office. With a different pool, usually there are administrators involved in the second round, or if it's a sports position, there are going to be coaches involved in the first round interview, and the athletic director, and then it would probably go to school principal, superintendent, possibly assistant superintendent. And then decisions are made from there. You have background checks and so forth that you do, and you have reference checks and things. So then a person is hired based on agreement with a contract. Then it doesn't matter if it's a coaching position, or a teaching position, secretarial, clerical, any kind of position. It's the same process, that the expectation is that there should be feedback provided to an employee and decisions made on is this the person, is it a great fit? And if it is a great fit and it needs, then we move forward. If it's not, if it needs adjusting, you might talk about making adjustments. If we feel that there's a better fit, then you might not continue a certain person in a position. And you're right, it's not like articulated on the website or something.
Right. And the only one that facilitates this decision-making is you, yourself. You have the final say of the hire and fire?
Depends on the position.
Sports position.
Sports position
Does the school
is-
board, does any other persons
The
outside of the
school-
athletic?
It's a stipend position.
Uh-huh.
And all of the stipends, they're not under the purview of the school board. All of the stipends go through my office.
I see. So you and the people in the school have that rightful
Yeah, there are
decision.
recommendations that are made to me, and process goes on from, I look into what's the background on this, what's the, why are certain recommendations being made, and I usually try not to micromanage other people's
Right.
jobs, because I might as well be their job, do their
And when you
job
say,
for them.
and when you say contracts, can that be anywhere from 1 year at a time to 10 years down the road? Or is it an annual thing?
So all stipends are annual positions. So somebody who has a position as a coach, it's a year to year. Somebody who has a stipend as a coordinator of professional learning communities that we run in our schools, a leadership role or something that's beyond their teaching job, those are also stipends, those are year-to-year
I
positions.
see. Okay, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Anybody else?
I think she needs to.
No, she was just
She's pointing.
Actually, if no one else is going to speak, I wrote a letter to the board that I think I'd like to
wanna go
address
to the
as a person of the public.
Okay.
Speaking not as a board member, but as an equally attractive citizen of Berwick, Dustin Price.
I'm sorry, is it what?
Equally attractive citizen of Berwick, Dustin Price. This was a letter that I wrote to Mr. Connolly upon hearing the events and informed the board, and I thought it'd be fair then that the public know what I had sent. I'm writing this letter in support of Coach Kelly Smith. I have heard the news of his dismissal after the Knights' first playoff appearance in a dozen years, and I am heartbroken and confused. Coach Kelly has brought much more than just a winning record to the Noble family. He has brought pride to kids who were used to hanging their heads low. He has changed the focus from the team being a contentious group of individuals to a true brotherhood. The stands were full, loud, and proud, and we brought more fans to away games than some of the home teams we visited could. When was the last time Noble got so much positive press? All season long, an improved Noble High School football team has been plucking opportunities out of the air. See Coast Online, October 12th. The Noble High football team is off to the best start in years with a 4-1 record and a firm grip on a playoff spot in Class B South. Journal Tribune, October 5th. I think we're looking pretty good. We're just more like a unit this year. We just work hard and we're really close. It's a lot different. We have our ups and downs, but we're like a family. Blake Willett, Journal Tribune, 10-5. This is the best year I've ever had at Noble, and just the culture change and everyone just playing as a team. Matthew Place, Journal Tribune, 10-5. They're a much, much improved team, both football-wise and personnel-wise, said Greeley coach David Higgins. I believe they're a much stronger team than they were last year and stronger than that people give them credit for. Portland Press Herald, September 13th. Under the article, Football Notebook, Noble High is turning its program around. And then there are the Noble families that have heard the news and in only a few short hours let their dismay be heard. This just breaks my heart. They'll be hard-pressed to replace the best coach Noble football has ever had, Chris Holmes. Yet another pathetic choice for the Noble admins. You and your team of coaches bring the team from the bottom to near the top in 2 seasons and they kill it. I wish Noble next year as half the team leaves and they start from scratch again. David Holmes. Coach, I'm sorry to hear this. For the past few years, I've asked my son on a regular basis, are you having fun? Are you learning the game? Do you feel that the coaches are connecting with the players? And all these questions were answered in capitals, yes. I'm extremely disappointed at the decision made by the athletic department. Maybe they should have considered the players' opinions. I have watched over the years the many coaching changes within this program, and you and your staff have made the most positive changes. Eric Pilcher. My son is going to be devastated when he hears this news. You made a difference for him, and I hope you continue to be part of our family. Stacy Wirtz. OMG, I am in awe. The team has never been what it is today without you. Very disappointed to hear this. I know my son was very proud and excited to be part of Capitals, your team. Kerry Landry. I've listened to your passion, your vision, and philosophy regarding this football program. I know how challenging it is to change a culture. The fact that this program was already seeing positive change speaks to the coach, staff, student-athletes, and supporting community. I appreciate your humble response that players need a leader and a mentor to succeed, and they certainly had one in you, Norm Fracassa. This is honestly ridiculous. Gage Humiston. I am so sorry for Noble and their team and the loss of the love and commitment you and your coaching team brought to them. The caring, compassion, concern, and dedication you gave this team will sorely be missed. I will pray for the future of this team and their hurt as they're mourning the loss of you. Thank you for all you have done. Amanda Bowden. I've got like 10 more of these, and I'll skip a few to get to, I guess, my comments.
We're over 3 minutes, just so you know.
Thank you. But in the second half, I believe you can have more time if
Yep.
allowed by the chair. May I continue with my last two paragraphs?
Sure.
Thank you. I want to be very clear that this communication is coming from myself in the capacity of a father of a Noble student athlete, not a board member. It is difficult sometimes to keep them separate, but the two roles definitely inform each other. Noble has always seemed to support its employees and work to improve deficiencies where they may be and bolster strengths. I've seen the lengths that Noble will go before resorting to dismissal, and I'm confused to see us remove a coach who has had such a positive impact without so much as a coaching session or an improvement plan. I'm concerned about the message that this sends to my child, his team, and other Noble coaches. If a coach who can turn a team around from a one-win team to a playoff contender and a cohesive family can get axed so arbitrarily, how secure can other coaches feel now? What will the athletes think to see the man who they followed to the playoffs be removed like this? Will they blame themselves? What if they won that last playoff game? Would that have saved their coach? These are questions that they'll have to ask themselves, and why should they have to carry that burden? Coach Smith was not your typical hard-nosed football coach, yelling at players like it's an episode of Friday Night Lights. He was kind, supportive, and understanding. He made hard calls and benched players that deserved it, made adjustments to positions that were unpopular, but as the record showed, they were the right calls. He changed the spirit of the team and in turn the school, and it's heartbreaking to me to see the change that affected so many be killed on the complaints of the so very few. This isn't fair, this isn't right, and this isn't the Noble way, and it's my sincere hope that this tragically poor decision is rectified. Thank you.
Kelly, can you pass those?
My name is Bryson Msad. I'm actually a senior at Noble High School. I live in Berwick, Maine. So obviously, like any other player, I was shocked by the firing of Kelly Smith. None of us were expecting it. As a person, I mean, I love Coach Smith. I know I could look towards him if I ever had any problems in life, if I ever need somebody to be there for me. But, and personally, like, this is not a shot at him as a person, and I don't want this to be heard as disrespect or anything, but as a football coach, as a head football coach, I feel like you're supposed to have a grip on your staff. Players are supposed to respect you. You're supposed to be with your team at all times, no matter what the circumstances are, and you're supposed to be running a practice. And as a player and as a 2-year captain under Coach Smith, which was his 2 years there, he lacked in those 4 categories. He was rarely at practice. When he was on the sideline on his phone. Rarely down with us at pregame.
Bryson, can I talk to you just for a second?
Mhm.
So, I don't want to seem disrespectful to your
No, I
opinion
understand. Yeah.
or to Mr. Price. I don't want it to look like, well, he's allowed to say nice things or that he was dismayed and that you're not allowed to say anything negative.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is your comments should really not just yours, anybody else's on any other topic should not be something that somebody else could say would be derogatory towards a person, where the person might say, well, that's a negative towards me and so forth. So just kind of bear that in mind a little bit.
Yeah.
I
no, understand appreciate
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just the attributes that I see in a head coach from seeing the way programs have run, not only from this program, but I have friends on other teams, and I've been around other players and everything, and I just feel like when maybe you guys are hiring a new head coach, or maybe if he is brought back, something needs to be in place where the head coach is the head coach, not more of a management style coach. And I feel like that needs to be put in place of just having a grip on the team. And as I said before, I love him. I don't have anything bad to say about him. But just from a head coaching standpoint and just the things that I see online, and like people they don't really understand. And I feel like everybody's looking at the record and looking at, oh, like what has this team done this year, but hasn't really been where I've been in seeing what's actually going on the practice field, on the game field, who's making the decisions. And it's just, I think people are just getting out of hand with everything, and really need to take a step back and realize, and that maybe ask the players and maybe ask the other coaches on the staff what their perspective is, rather than looking at it from the outside in. Because I feel like that's what people are doing now, is they're looking at it from, oh, well, look at the record, they're improving. Well, maybe a coach can coach anything. Like, I could go out and coach a basketball team if I had LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, and I could go out there and win games. If you have talented players, you can win games. And it takes a coaching staff to put those talented players in the right place. And we had a coaching staff that did that. But we didn't, and when it comes to making the calls to bench players and sit players, it came more from our offensive and defensive coordinator. And I know this personally because I've seen it. And at the end of the day, it's people from the outside looking in, people seeing it not from our perspective but from theirs. And like, even the Facebook post that was made, I feel like he could have made a different approach towards it, as in addressing the community rather than putting it on Facebook and then having it be reposted by Maine Football for the whole state to see, which now looks bad on us as a school, makes our athletic department look bad, and makes our football team look bad. So I feel like we just need to take a step back and actually look at this issue.
Bryson, I thank you for your comments because you made a nice adjustment on the fly.
Yeah, very good.
Right, represented yourself really well.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Travis, you just said that, right? Lynn, you wanted to stay? No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right,
We are
great. Thank you,
adjourned then.
folks.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
everybody.